So I knew of my identity, maybe not the fullest language or the clarity of it, given how most trans people at my age were never given the opportunity to expand our identities greater than what the world had told us. But I had known that there was a part of me at a very early age, maybe around 3 or 4, that something was wrong or at least different about who I was. That got really bad when I hit adolescence, as it often can be for trans people. When the body starts to change, you have that surge of the dominant hormone in how you were assigned at birth. For me was testosterone, and how that significantly changed me. At that point, I recall it being around grade 6, grade 7, so maybe around age 12. Life just changed from that point onwards. Never went away. This constant state of distress. We read about it often in people's stories. We see it often portrayed in the news as a feeling, and it's conveyed as this identity. And it's often minimized as a word that makes it sound like it's happy or sad or angry, a very simple emotion that one goes through, but it is an entire state of being. So that distress, that pain, that sense of imbalance would carry through to my life until age 45. Effectively just an endless noise, an endless imbalance, an endless pain of this self that doesn't reflect who you are inside. For me, very much the resonating description would be born in the wrong body. My brain, parts of my biological system knew who I was and knew how I was supposed to have developed, but my body didn't. And I know for other trans people, their story and experience may be shaped and described differently, but for mine, that certainly seemed more accurate in a way to sort of convey to non-trans people that this is the way I was struggling. And for most of my life, I just learned how to survive and cope. Who was I to say amongst this world that I was any different when there was no one I could go to, there was no help I could find, there was no resources, and any desire to access those sort of things became very shame-filled, judgmental, often portrayed as evil or deviant, and a lot of other negative words. So hiding is what we do. Hiding is what queer people and other marginalized people do in a world that says there's only one way or a certain number of ways to be, regardless of the pain or harm or distress that that's going to cause, which to me seems like a really silly way to encourage a healthful society, especially when people are in pain. I lived, I think, a advantageous life, being the person I was and being able to be relatively high functioning insofar as a closeted trans individual in a world that said I was something different. But by age 45, that just hit a wall, and I did not expect it. I did not foresee it, even though weeks and months prior, the pain of it was becoming quite clearer. I didn't quite correlate the pain of that to the distress and agony of just everyday life as being linked. These were two worlds I had just divided very clearly. And so age 45, hit this wall, massive mental health breakdown, and started hitting therapy and decided with my therapist, I am going to tell them everything. My initial plan was not to tell them about this component of my life, because I really sort of foresaw that was not going to be an important component. But within, literally weeks, it had started coming out. And months later, literally months later after my mental health breakdown, had another big breakdown in front of my wife at the time. And that was me basically sharing my entire struggle that I had since I was a child with the first person in my life. The one person actually I really wanted to share this journey with. And the rest sort of became history. I didn't foresee myself transitioning. I think having language and understanding and context finding that I wasn't alone in this journey. In fact, that there were just tens upon tens of millions around the world sharing a similar experience, that found avenues of healing, of ways of finding joy and peace and contentment, was really amazing, honestly. And yeah, that helped me make the decisions fairly quickly, I'm not going to lie, because when you are in pain and looking for help, you're going to start finding very quickly the avenues and solutions to stop that pain, or at least mitigate that in ways that make life quite a bit more tolerable to live. And I was effectively at the end of my rope. You'll hear that a lot from trans people. When their coming out stories tend to happen, that tends to be when their body and mind and spirit and every other component of self is at its end. It's at its breaking point. It can no longer strive to do what the world says it has to. The pain is just too great. And for me, it was an explosion outward of self, of claiming that self, of this powerful me that was always there behind the scenes, playing the role of the person I was before, that all of a sudden just wanted to be herself by herself. Not a new person, not a new creation, but the one that was always behind the eyes, behind the self, behind the portrayal of this performative self I had been before. And as I went through that transition, then other solutions became possible, ones that I was not initially thinking about, which was medical transition. I decided to do that probably within about a month and a half, 2 months after my coming out story. And I knew from that point on there were going to be certain surgeries I was going to just require. There were certain parts of my body, primarily the primary and secondary sexual characteristics that I needed to better reflect who I was. And again, that's not reflective of all trans people, but for me, that was absolutely a priority. And some other surgeries I wasn't. I was kind of hoping to maybe avoid and pray that hormones and time just and peace with self would be able to find peace in that. But yeah, I think sort of realizing that I also don't need to live in more distress than I have to, and I have resources that are available to me to allow for a more joyful and authentic life, and that I don't always have to carry this burden of trauma every time I look in a mirror or when people see me. And so for myself, I chose a journey that included feminizing myself in a way